Hogan of the Terrell Hogan Law Firm.
I'm Wayne Hogan. A company's cell phone policy can protect your employees and your bottom line. Our distracted driving presentation for the workforce can help.
Learn more at waynehogan.law.
This is WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. Ahead in the next 5 minutes, live local news for the First Coast from the WJCT News team.
It's the biggest stories from the week. I'm Melissa Ross, and just ahead this hour on First Coast Connect, we'll discuss the week's top stories with our Friday Media Roundtable. Everything from Duval Schools canceling a contract with Jasmine to more debate over the city's Confederate monuments and rental assistance for local families coming to you from the city. It's all ahead. Then later, the top local talent on heavy rotation inside JME, our Jacksonville Music Experience. It's this month's DJ listening sessions with our own Matt Shaw. Keep listening. It's all ahead. After the day's news.
It's 1 minute past 9 o'clock. This is WJCT News, 89.9 Jacksonville, 59 degrees here now. Former Republican State Senator Jeff Brandes was a major champion for property insurance reform during his time in the state legislature. Term limits kept Brandes from seeking re-election this year, but he is still speaking out on the issue. He says the rising cost of property insurance is the most urgent pocketbook issue facing the state.
This is the Achilles heel of the Florida real estate market. This is the Achilles heel of Florida's growth. If Florida doesn't get this right, then what you're going to do is gut the middle class in the state because people will not be able to afford homes.
Brandes says he started working on the issue about a decade ago because it was the biggest one facing his constituents in St. Petersburg. State lawmakers will gather in Tallahassee in about a week and a half to work on stabilizing the state's property insurance market. The special session is set to start December 12th. Maintenance work is starting Monday on the Volano Beach Pier in St. Augustine. St. Johns County officials say the project includes resurfacing and pressure washing and should take about 4 weeks. Portions of the pier will stay open to the public while the work is going on. And St. Johns County residents curious about planned improvements to the intersection of A1A and Michler Road will get the information that they need at an upcoming public meeting. The county's Public Works Department will hold an hour-long question and answer session Tuesday, December 13th. That starts at 5:30 at the Ponte Vedra Concert Hall on North A1A. It's a $2.5 million project, which includes more turn lanes and road resurfacing. It's 59 degrees in Jacksonville, 57 at Jack's Beach, 68 in St. Augustine, low 70s for the afternoon, partly sunny today.
This is WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. Opinions expressed on the Friday Media Roundtable are those of our panelists and do not necessarily reflect the views of WJCT News.
Duval Schools cancels a long-standing contract with Jasmine. The debate over removing Confederate monuments keeps on going, and the city offers thousands of Jacksons rental assistance. Some of the stories making headlines this week. Good Friday morning, live with you from Studio 2. I'm Melissa Ross, and this is First Coast Connect. Thanks for listening. Just ahead, all the week's top stories with our Friday Roundtable, and you can join us, 549-2937. Then later, all the top local artists on heavy rotation inside our own JME, the Jack's Music Experience. We'll take a listen to what is on the turntable this month. That and more all ahead this morning, but first it's Friday, and here to round up the week's news, we welcome here in studio a fantastic group, beginning with blogger and regular contributor Fred Matthews.
Good morning, Melissa.
Hey, Fred. Dan Scanlon of WJCT News is here.
Good morning.
Hi, Dan. Joe McLean of WJXT Channel 4, the local station.
Thank you. Nice. Thank you, Melissa.
And rounding out our fabulous foursome, Nate Monroe of the Florida Times-Union. Hey, Nate.
Good morning, Melissa.
So good to have you guys all with us and lots to talk about. Lots of news to get into. Later, we'll talk about rental assistance available for people who need it. Also, why one city councilman says bullies pushing the remnants of the old Confederacy need to be punched in the nose. That's later. But first, our top story. You might have heard about this a bit this week. Duval County Public Schools has ended a 20-year relationship with Jasmine. That's Northeast Florida's leading support organization for LGBTQ youth. In an email to principals Wednesday, Duval Superintendent Diana Green said the decision was due to inappropriate program materials. Jasmine's CEO Cindy Watson called the move an overreaction to a far-right extremist website spreading inflammatory rhetoric.
The Duval County Public Schools terminated their contract with Jasmine to provide support for the Gay Straight Alliance's after-school clubs in 20 school district schools, and they terminated that contract abruptly this week. This appears to me to be a hasty decision. DCPS issued a resolution recognizing our organization for the work we do in supporting LGBTQ+ students just a few years ago for our 25th anniversary. Jasmine is unaware of how the decision was made, only that it seems to be an overreaction to a far-right extremist website spreading inflammatory misinformation about our HIV prevention work with young adults. While it's regrettable that we posted something on social media in a way that could be so misunderstood, Jasmine has a long history in Northeast Florida of providing safe and affirming space for LGBTQ young people. Our work encompasses mental health programs, housing resources, HIV prevention and health services, and teen programs, all essential to helping LGBTQ+ young people be whole and healthy. It would be unfortunate for the good work Jasmine has done in the community over our 28-year history to be overshadowed by extremists with no context for how HIV prevention work happens, or why it's so important in Jacksonville, or how it's a public health practice and not something worthy of alarm.
Okay, that's the CEO of Jasmine. So the district nixed Jasmine after a right-wing news outlet, the Florida Standard, published 2 Jasmine Instagram posts that have since been deleted, showing a card game for young adults using photos of genitals. 5492937. Watson says these posts were to promote HIV testing services for young adults, not an activity for kids. So, Dan Scanlon, let's begin with you. This has caused a firestorm, and there are more shoes to drop as protests are expected at the upcoming school board meeting next week.
Well, the big concern, obviously, of certain people is that this was a game actually being played by under 18-year-olds. And according to Cindy, I believe these kids were separated in other places, and certainly this was never played during their Gay Straight Alliance meetings at 20 schools. But yes, indeed, I'm sure there's going to be massive protests outside of school board on Tuesday. And as Joe has indicated pre-show, we're going to see probably people in favor of keeping Jasmine involved, as well as, I presume, parents who are going to just protest. They've all, I'm sure, seen what these cards look like. We've all seen what they look like. And to some, that's inappropriate for almost anybody under the age of 18 or even 20 to look at.
Let's talk about Jasmine's history in the community. Joe McLean, they have done a lot of good work over the years supporting a very vulnerable group of kids and young adults.
Speaking specifically to what Cindy mentioned about that resolution came out in 2019. The school board of Duval County passed that resolution. The board chair signed it, and it was a glowing basically endorsement of Jasmine and the work that it was doing with Duval County Public Schools. Just as a reminder, Jasmine stands for Jacksonville Area Sexual Minority Youth Network, the main work that it did with Duval County Public Schools. And this was a working agreement. That's what was canceled this week. The working agreement was really for anti-bullying literature and education, and then also sponsoring those GSA clubs, Gay Straight Alliance clubs. So with that long relationship being severed, I also want to speak specifically to something Cindy said in her statement. This was a statement that Jasmine put out. she had said that it was unfortunate that this post may have been misinterpreted. I don't think there's any misinterpretation with the post. I mean, the images on the post were from this game, which was really, the game was really marketed towards young adult. It's like a bachelorette party game. It's the type you would see at those, kiosks at the mall that you would buy as like a gag gift for like a college party or something like that.
Maybe from Spencer Gifts.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Spencer Gifts, Hot Topic. That's the type of game that we're talking about. And it had little images, cartoon images of, compromising male parts. And the issue, though, is it went on Instagram. On Instagram, which is a public-facing Instagram, to Jasmine's admission. That is the real issue.
Okay. Fred Matthews, across Florida, school superintendents are being fired as extremely conservative candidates are seated on school boards. Superintendent Diana Green made this decision. Let's talk about what may have gone into her thinking.
It was probably a no-brainer, especially when she spoke with the staff about this and it came up. And you're right. Given the conservative climate that we are facing, that many school boards are facing, I don't think Dr. Green was in any imminent danger from it, but she certainly would have taken criticism had this gotten to a board meeting level first before she made them aware of it. And this is, it's not as if it's going to kill the Jasmine program or that kind of thing, but it is something. It's a step. It's a step. That's what makes Dr. Green so successful here in her run in Duval County, is she's been able to get ahead of the curve and deal with issues like this that are relatively minor when you consider all the other things she has to work with, and just say, no, we have to end this contract. It's not going to kill Jasmine. It'll do wonders for the board game, for those of us who never even heard of it. But it's one of those things that you just do. It's a no-brainer from an administrative standpoint. We don't need to be a part of this. And it's not something that we would encourage any of our middle school and high school students to play openly anyway.
And I do want to say, specifically something Diana Green said is something that Jasmine is heavily pushing back on. In Diana Green's statement, it identified this game as being part of Jasmine's program materials. That's what Jasmine says. No, that's not part of our program materials. This was never exposed to anybody under 18. So,
it's an object lesson for any organization to be mindful of who's doing your social media posts and watching that carefully. But going beyond that, Nate Monroe, the district and Superintendent Green have said that this doesn't reflect on their commitment to all students and employees, including those who are LGBT. But the district has been criticized for scaling back support for that group of students.
Yeah, and I think the perception that this really hasty decision created will give students and parents reason to really sort of question that. I mean, it doesn't look like the school district did any sort of independent investigation into these accusations before deciding to cut off Jasmine, which, as you and the panels have noted, I mean, this is a long-standing, credible organization. I should probably note I've been a donor to it in the past. And so, I mean, in some ways, I think that the speed of the decision it sort of speaks to this larger climate in Florida that is very anti-LGBTQ, and I think it's something that really concerns a lot of parents and their families in the state.
We have had reports of some families leaving the state to get appropriate care for their children after the state essentially banned what's known as gender-affirming care. And at the same time, we want to hear from you, whatever your opinion about this. 549-2937. Give us a call. Dee in Jacksonville. Hi, Dee. Good morning.
Hi, Melissa. How are you today?
All right. Thanks for calling in.
I am a former teacher in Duval County. I worked for the county for 23 years. And things like this make me so glad that I resigned this June. It's disgusting what Diane Green has done and not supporting her students and her teachers. And we're going back 50 years because of people like April Terry and her followers that are so conservative that they can't understand.
Do you mean April Carney, the new school board member? I'm sorry.
Yes, yes,
okay.
ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And their hate and their lies, and it's just awful that our students are not going to be supported, and a relationship that has done so much for our community and for understanding in our community is severed without even an investigation and a way for them to apologize or to make sure that this doesn't happen again. What are we showing our youth? That you can't make a mistake and be able to be accountable for it and tell others that it's okay to make a mistake? I'm just really disgusted, and I'm just appalled by our community's reaction to this.
Thank you, Dee. Okay, what about that? Dan, could there have been more of a process in at least trying to give voice to those who would have preferred maybe a reprimand or an investigation? Or was Dr. Green faced with no other alternative here?
I think your last choice is probably what her choice was, that she was faced with getting this done so that there would be no repercussions. But that said, I've said on this show many times before that schools should be a safe place for every student, whether you're being bullied or gay or straight. And here now we're losing these Gay-Straight Alliance meetings where gay students had a place to go and talk and maybe had a friend in a teacher or at least a protector. It's not there anymore, and there should have been maybe a suspension for a month. Let's discuss it. Let's try to find some ways to monitor your social media items so that they don't annoy or threaten the Duval County school system.
5492937. Now, Fred, in addition to a big protest expected at the school board meeting next week, it's my understanding the Washington Post has been calling people all over town and is planning to publish a story on this. So it looks like we're about to go national again, Duval. Yay!
Well, we can go as national as we want on this story, but still, at this point, the superintendent, executive, the chief executive of the Duval County School Board is taking an action. The next action is up to what board member is going to propose reinstating the contract. Which board member? Because you can protest, jump up and down, raise Cain, but which board member is going to propose reinstating the contract over what the superintendent has done, and then get the 4 votes to pass it? That's going to be the key. The stories and all are all interesting stuff, but now we get into politics.
And the governor has also fired school board members in the past year for some issues. So their heads could be on the block, too, if the DeSantis administration does not like what the school board is doing.
And, of course, whether it's that or the governor firing an independently elected prosecutor in Hillsborough County, those moves have come under furious criticism as authoritarian, removing independently elected officials from office because you don't like their policy positions. Joe?
If a move like that, though, you need to have sufficient political cover. And I think a situation like this, in the minds of many, I think, Floridians, would be an appropriate response in the minds of many Floridians. Of course, as the caller just said, many others think that it's a disgusting decision. What I do want to speak to, though, is a couple of things that aren't going away. When I talked to Jasmine CEO Cindy, she said they're still going to be doing their work. They're still going to be working to provide safe spaces
and not to cut you off,
services.
These are kids that are often kicked out of their homes. They tend to have much higher rates of suicide, drug abuse, homelessness, all manner of issues because their families don't accept them. So let's keep that front and center, at least in this conversation. This is a vulnerable group of kids.
Right. And another thing that the district said, it specifically said, we're still going to maintain those GSA clubs. And it said that we're looking at our other departments, the health and PE department, the equity and inclusion department, and they're looking at what resources are needed in the absence of Jasmine to make sure that those services are still provided to district students. So I didn't want – I mean, I wanted to make sure to mention that so that it's not
it's
these
not
are going away.
It's not a total turnoff. This is just an action having to do with this particular. It's
certainly
not a turnoff
symbolic.
Yes, just
certainly symbolic.
That's what it is. But it's not, because those students are there. The problems are real, and they're not going away. But this particular action was a bit of an embarrassment. It would have caused some issues. So let's deal with this now. But the problems that are out there with students are not going to go away, and the relationship and where they can go. Jasmine does great work, and it's a good place to know that it's there, that students, that young people can get help.
Lots of emails. Here's one. Jasmine should admit they were wrong. What they did was inappropriate. If the same thing would have happened to an organization catering to straight youth, says one listener. Here's another email. It's impossible to judge the decision without knowing the rationale. We need to hear from DCPS first. Well, we will certainly hear a lot Tuesday night. Let's take another call. Charles on the west side. Hi, Charles.
Good morning, everybody. This climate of fear that is being stoked is, I don't want to sound paranoid or nothing like that, but, how long is it before the state of Florida starts issuing pink triangles to people? But in this case, maybe we should make them rainbow triangles as a symbol of pride, I'm making a reference to, the pink triangles worn during the concentration camp era.
Yeah.
But, yeah,
for gay
folks,
people, yeah.
This is really upsetting.
Charles,
they just keep targeting,
I understand,
okay.
and I didn't mean to cut you off. I understand, and I've heard from a lot of people who are upset by this. Just a few tweets. Here's one from Julie. I've grown weary of the state's stance being called conservative. We're talking about the rights of people to fully participate in society, to be safe, to access resources that save lives. The climate in Florida is hatred and bigotry, not conservatism, she says. Nate.
The school board in its best moments has sort of cast aside concerns about the establishment being angry with it for pursuing goals that it thought were worthy. One of those, of course, being the half-cent sales tax. Like, the school board, school officials were leaders on that issue. People probably don't remember this now, but when they came out with that idea, they were opposed by City Hall. They were opposed by the mayor. They were opposed by the city council. They took the city to court to get this thing on the ballot. And they led on that issue. And part of what can be so frustrating about watching Diana Green in a moment like this is it's sort of like, well, where did that sort of leadership go? I mean, everyone on the panel agrees that Jasmine is a worthy, credible organization, and so they put something goofy on social media. This is a 2-decade-long relationship that this organization's had with the school district. I find it bizarre that it was cast aside this quickly, and I really think that there probably is a working majority on the school board that would be willing to restore this relationship. And again, that's the kind of decision that I think exemplifies the school board at its best. I mean, just doing what's right for kids. Who cares if the governor comes after you? I mean, your job is to help students and their families.
Rick in Baldwin. Hi, Rick. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. Just real quickly, Mr. Melissa, I just want to say this. You're looking at it from one side. What about the other side that's not really for this? So I think my thing will be have one person vote for it and one person against it and debate it from there. That'll be my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. I'm sure these board members are going to hear from both sides, and their actions will probably be predicated on which side is the loudest and applies the most pressure, Fred.
Well, we'll see what Mr. Willie, is he still chairman?
Darryl Willie, yeah.
Willie is still chairman. He represents the a fairly conservative section of the North Side, and he's also one of the newer generational members of the school board. But again, we'll see who proposes to reinstate it. I mean, that's going to be the key here, whether it's going to be this newest board member, whether she proposes it, and then it's got to go through, a month and a half of debate, and we're still going to have it in the headlines. I mean,
and apparently national headlines.
National headlines, and Jacksonville gets to be front and center again. But who is going to propose it? Any takers?
Well, when have national headlines ever affected Duval County? Seriously, it's there. We yell Duval, and we go our own way.
Joe.
And I wanted to mention also that I don't want us to get the two discussions mixed up. I want to distinguish between the idea that Jasmine did make a mistake in many minds putting something like this on social media. Social media error is one thing to disagree with. I think there's less disagreement there, that the photos that were posted on social media weren't appropriate for social media. Then there's the discussion on whether or not DCPS should be partnered with Jasmine. I think that's the discussion that people are going to have on Tuesday, even though that's this issue with the social media post, I think, is being successfully used.
Are the pictures still up?
No, they were deleted. But what this, you raised such a great point. We are in a political climate now where an incident like this in a local community is weaponized by partisan websites, and it does occur on both sides, but it is weaponized as part of a larger battle that is happening in this country. Are we going to continue to go backward in a revanchist way? Are we going to roll back decades of social progress for African Americans, other people of color, women, LGBTQ people, the disabled? All of these groups have made enormous gains. And we are now living through this backlash where there is a real effort to roll back some of these gains. And so an incident like what happened between DCPS and Jasmine is weaponized as part of this larger battle that we are living through in the United States.
I mean, that website called this inappropriate entertainment in their story, the ones that posted this. And that's, to me, sounds like a one-sided presenter of this story. We would not call it inappropriate. We might just call it unfortunate that maybe someone should have thought better before posting these images. But that's not our call.
All right. And folks, I know that lots of people have opinions about this, but a lot of other stuff happened this week. So let's get to it. Also this week, another big issue. Advocates for removing the city's Confederate monuments are running out of patience. There are two pots of money for addressing this issue. There's $500,000 the mayor allocated in Jacksonville City's budget for removal. There's even an offer from the Jesse Ball DuPont Fund to pay for a facilitated community discussion. But the city council is stalling. Earlier this week, Councilman at-large Matt Carlucci appeared on this program and expressed frustration with the process and also anger over a Confederate banner that flew over TIAA Bank Field.
Jacksonville's Gator Bowl, TIAA Stadium, the place where all people, white, black, Republican, Democrat, rich and poor, we all come there because it's a place where we can rally together in unity. And then to fly a flag of division over the stadium, to me, was especially hateful and despicable and stirring the pot. And, it's time that bullies like that get a good punch in the nose.
Fred Matthews.
You've got the two top African-American leaders on the Jacksonville City Council who have said and done almost nothing on this. The past president and the current president, both elected at large, have taken
Sam Newby, Terrence Freeman.
Sam Newby, Terrence Freeman have taken virtually no stand on this issue, have sat through all of the protests and all of the carrying on, who represent that. In Terrence Freeman's case, he even represented a district for a brief moment after he got appointed to that and then decided to run at large and win. You have, out of the 5 candidates that I've interviewed that are running for mayor, at least 2 of them pretty much indicated they are against any removal of the monuments. They're not even in favor of contextualizing it. Let's let it stay as it is. There's not enough voting power on the current city council to do anything more than what's already been done. The mayor has proposed, and the council has decided not to dispose of anything.
They're not even disposing. They're just kind of letting it ride.
Let it sit in the pot. Let it run. Let the clock run out. So we're in that. That's the position that we're in right now, folks. You've got the folks that you elected, and there's certainly not 13 votes. Let alone there's not even 10 votes. To be honest with you, let alone if they had to get 13 for this. This is just something that's going to sit here. Nothing is going to happen, I'm sad to say, until at least next July or August after the new council is elected and sworn in. There's just nothing going to happen with this, and there's no incentive to do it.
Nate Monroe, Mayor Curry has publicly proposed money to remove these monuments. He has actually allocated money in the city budget. So he has made some public-facing comments very much in favor of this. At the same time, attorneys for the city are arguing in federal court against a lawsuit calling for the removal of not only all of these monuments in Jacksonville, but place names and markers across North and Central Florida.
Yeah, I mean, I think that some people feel a little bit of cognitive dissonance with the mayor's position. The mayor has made it clear at some points that he's willing to really wield this strong executive power of his office beyond just kind of staking out a position and maybe allocating money. Like, I think there is a thought that the mayor himself could just go take at least the Springfield monument down just on his own. Let somebody challenge him, if they're really concerned about it. And so, yeah, I mean, we're just kind of stuck in a rut and to build on Fred's point, I mean, Jacksonville, you elected a den of weasels to the city council, and it's not just on this issue. It's, from trash to Confederate monuments. These are people who avoid making tough decisions. The council doesn't want to vote to keep the monument in Springfield, and certainly doesn't want to vote to take it down. So we're just in this sort of bizarre stasis, and I mean, it's disgraceful, and it's honestly, it's humiliating for the city. I mean, at least vote to keep it, at least sort of embrace what we're doing.
Den of Weasels.
Sounds like a good band name.
I think it's been taken.
Oh, okay.
That's why we read Nate every week.
545492937. Okay, so the mayor promised about 2 years ago that all of these monuments would come down. There's money in the city budget. They're clearly not going to move on this without a lot more public pressure. At the same time, groups like Take 'Em Down Jacks and the Northside Coalition of Jacksonville, they're never going to let this go. They're not going to stop pushing on this issue.
Right. One of the things we were kind of discussing before the program was the difference between a monument that's sitting in a park somewhere and something like a school names, which we saw obviously play out over the course of 11 months of tense, contentious school board meetings. And even then, I mean, to Nate's point, the school board was the one who was making that decision. But at the time, my colleague Jim Piggott and I approached the city council members because as elected leaders, I think the voters are owed what their position is on school names in their city. And we had to lasso them. Like the ones that we did get on camera, we really had to corner them and be like, ask them paparazzi style, what do you think about this? It seems like that sort of hot potato that no one wants to actually deal with. At the same time, I really think, in all my reporting of the school names, of the monuments, I haven't heard any actual specific argument, like good argument for keeping them. All I've heard is generic, like phrases like save heritage or things like that, which not really any specific reason for keeping a monument to the Confederacy, which was...
And when you talk to some of the mayoral candidates, like, for example, Leanna Cumber, who appeared on this program, when she was asked about it, like most of these elected officials, she deflected and said there were more important matters to deal with, and that she sees this as a distraction or a side issue. That was the general tone of what she said, one of the candidates running for mayor. Dan.
Yeah, but see, what gets me the most is, remember, just a month or so ago, the anti-Semitic statements that were projected on the stadium and elsewhere in downtown. Within days, you had a protest and support movement, a vigil right outside of City Hall with at least one city council member there. And yet there was Ben Frazier, the Northside Coalition. They were also holding signs that said, take them down. Immediately, this community helped, backed up, supported the Jewish community when they were targeted. Nothing until that banner flew over the stadium. It's been letting lie. To take up on what Fred said, I really think they're just going to try to let it stay put and let the next mayor and the next city council handle it or not. And that way, they don't have to deal with that headache.
Richard tweets the show. 3 of Jacksonville's most powerful black leaders, Sam Newby, Terrence Freeman, and T.K. Waters, are all Republicans. He goes on to say there is no coincidence that Confederate flags are now waving over the stadium while gay students are being swept out the door. A den of weasels indeed, he says. Tom on the west side. Go ahead, Tom.
Yes, good morning. I just wanted to say that in Germany, it is illegal to fly a Nazi flag like what they flew over the stadium. Yet here in Jacksonville, we can't get rid of these relics of Jim Crow era oppression. It's really a sad statement about what Jacksonville is standing for.
Thank you, Tom. Let's talk about these historical analogies. Nate, after World War II, Nazi Germany was forced to reckon with its atrocities. The Nuremberg trials happened. It was made illegal to show Nazi iconography in Germany. German students from kindergarten on are given the full download of the horrors of the past in school. Yet in this country, 150 plus years after the end of the Civil War, activist groups are still trying to force Americans to have the reckoning that this country didn't want to have about our horrors and our atrocities, which were every bit as shameful and terrible as what happened to Jewish people in the Nazi era. There's just this massive amount of denial that just is so stubborn. And that is why this city is so stuck, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with any of that. And, it's worth keeping in mind, too, that with most of these monuments, and particularly like the Springfield Monument, those things are not even grounded in our deep history. They're relics of a Jim Crow culture that constructed them and put them up. I mean, part of what's just sort of darkly humorous about all of this is that Jacksonville was not an important theater in the Civil War. The Confederate Army sacked the city. The Union sacked the city. The Confederates abandoned it. The closest battle of any significance was in Olustee, which is a considerable distance away. So, I mean, the idea that there's any rationale for this in the city's history is delusional, and it's misguided, and it's really ahistorical. And so all of that rationale is just completely made up. And by the way, I mean, if this is not an important issue and if it's a distraction, then resolve it and don't make it a distraction anymore. I mean, this insistence that it's so unimportant we can't talk about it. Well, unimportant issues should be easy. So, that sort of line too, it's in its own way, it's just kind of insidious in allowing us to just kind of keep plodding into like this bizarre and shameful status quo we're in.
Clearly, these officials are concerned that they'll be voted out if they come out in favor of removal. What else could it be?
Heaven forbid that happen.
I want to speak to that because something I noticed, Save Southern Heritage is the group that is claiming credit for flying that banner over the stadium. And I took a peek at that organization's website and looked at its wall of shame. These are public officials who are identified as siding with what it describes as the radical left, Black Lives Matter, Antifa, anarchists. Now, some of the names on this list will surprise you. Nikki Haley, Jeb Bush, Rick Scott, and none other than Ron DeSantis are on that group's wall of shame. I just thought that.
What do
was
you mean? What on the wall? What is the wall of
shame?
shame?
The wall of shame is people who are against preserving Southern heritage, according to
this group. Okay.
Now, it appears to be a pretty dated list, but I mean, I think that sort of speaks to the operation and the judgment of this group. It's surprising to see some of those officials on this list, on literally the wall of shame. That says they are, this is the quote, they are not worthy of the vote of any patriotic American. So
we're talking about a very far right group.
I would say
that
so.
Flew
Yes.
that banner.
Yes.
Okay, Sharon in Atlantic Beach. Go ahead, Sharon.
Hi. I just wanted to say something kind of nefarious here and sneaky, that the folks from the North Side Coalition and others really don't have to just sit around with their hats in their hands waiting for our politicos to do something about the Confederate monuments. They have a perfect weapon. They need to go down to the Historical Society, get the names of all of the people that we can find who have been lynched in this city since, the 1800s, and put up their own monuments, which might be very inexpensive. Life-sized black metal cutouts of the human figure with the name and the date of the lynching inscribed on them, and put them up at the sites where those things occurred, if you can get permission to hang them from a tree, to put them on a building, or just stand there. Volunteers stand there with them at certain periods. I will bet you the city commission will trade you monument for monument until those lynching monuments come down.
I hear you, Sharon. You have to go all the way to Montgomery, Alabama to learn about the people in Duval County who were lynched at the National Memorial for Peace and Justice, the Lynching Museum and Memorial that tells the truth about racial terror in America. There is a monument in that museum to people in this county who were lynched, but you will not see it here in Jacksonville.
If they're so scared, if the politicians are maybe, and this is theoretical, so scared about making any action, let the people do it. Go for the referendum. Let the people choose. My contention, as we talked beforehand, is that this has not been a lot of conversation among the general population against this. It has been specific groups who don't like it. So let the people decide.
Okay, let me make mention, folks, before we get to our lightning round, about another important story. Duval County residents can now apply for rent or utility bill assistance. This is a part of the Emergency Rental Assistance Program offered by the city of Jacksonville to help people who lost income in the pandemic. They've got millions to give out. Fred, the site keeps crashing because so many people are trying to get in, but the city says, don't give up, keep trying.
Don't give up. Keep trying. Equal and side by side by this is another issue that that City Council, possibly the legislature, can deal with. It runs counter to this is being able to get some cap on the amount of the increases in rent from 6 months to 6 months. I had a guy that has had me on his email list for the last year or so. He just finished running for Congress, but he's been living in the same apartment for 20 years. Him and his wife, they're approaching 80 years old. Their rent went from just a regular increase of $50 to $100 every time they renewed each year to now about $500 increase in his rent. He's been trying to get this some legislative pass. He's been going to court to get it done. That's of equal concern to folks. Along with getting this rental assistance thing. I mean, it is a good thing, obviously a result of the COVID issue. And it's understandable the site's going to crash because people have been waiting for it.
Yeah,
so long.
They need that. People don't really need this help. You can apply. You can text to 211-904. Or you can go online. You can go to the library and apply.
One caveat to that: the rentor, the landlords, got to do this with the lessee. And a lot of the hang up with this is that there have been many landlords who did not want to co-apply for their lessees. And that's been a problem, and I dare say it's going to still be a problem here.
And as our story indicated, you can apply on paper for this, but if you do, you're going to be real low down on the line.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a computer, go to the public library and sweat it out, sit there, and keep it going so you get in the hopper for this money.
Yeah, it's coj.net/ERAP, ERAP, or text apply to 211904. Nate, thousands of people are trying to get in and have already applied.
Yeah, I mean, I think a legacy coming out of the pandemic is that, just this awareness about, affordable housing, the inaffordability of rental housing, and really just how little help there is for people in this country who are barely scratching by. I mean, that is a structural problem, and these sorts of aid programs are good. They're temporary. People should take advantage of them when they can. But yeah, I mean, this is something we're going to be grappling with for a long, long time.
Joe.
Yes, I think I totally agree with Nate that this is going to be a lingering problem, and particularly in Florida. Obviously, when we saw Charlie Crist running for governor, he was hitting the DeSantis administration a lot on rental prices, on housing. It's just going to continue to be a challenge. And so,
again, folks, this window closes Monday, December 5th. If you need rental assistance, go to coj.net/ERAP, coj.net/ERAP, or text apply to the number 211904. All right, let's go around the horn and check in with our fabulous foursome on some stories that might have missed your attention this week. Yes, it's our lightning round. And I'll start. Don't miss the free breakfast and wildflower workshop this Saturday at Regeneration Park. That's at Moncrief and West 13th Street from 9 to 11 a.m. They will be sowing a wildflower meadow and giving you native planting tips. Here's Jennifer Casey, chair of the Duval Soil and Water Conservation District.
And this is going to be a really terrific opportunity for families to learn together, get a little dirty. And native wildflowers are really important. They help us conserve water. They don't require fertilizers. So if you come out to the workshop on Saturday, you're going to learn to really beautify our city with wildflowers and also learn how to benefit our environment.
You can learn more at duvalsoilandwater.com. Fred Matthews.
I saw this, believe it or not, in the local paper, which many of you should read.
Thank you.
But you need to reserve your copy now for the brand new, shall I say it, Ron DeSantis memoir, which will be coming out very soon. I'm sure it will be very insightful, give you some ideas about his military career, his time in junior baseball, all of those things, and his illustrious career in Congress. So I'm trying to reserve my copy now.
All right.
Yours.
Dan Scanlon.
Be on the lookout for 2 juvenile Galapagos tortoises stolen on Wednesday from the St. Augustine Alligator Farm. Here they are on their Facebook page right now. They believe that they were taken in the early afternoon, possibly tucked under a poncho or underneath.
How do you hide one of those?
20 pounds there. You could be put in a poncho or put them in a backpack, but someone brazenly grabbed them. They are part of a endangered animal breeding program. They're very important animals, and they don't like cold weather, so it's been chilly.
Keep an
Not
eye
a
out
smart
for
idea.
him.
Keep an eye out. Bolo is out there. Police are looking.
Nate.
Well, in a similar vein, I was sad to see that Lash, the oldest silverback gorilla at the Jacksonville Zoo, died this week. So, rip Lash.
Ooh.
Yeah, I
writer.
remember seeing that gorilla with the kids many times when we would go to the zoo. So
I was going to say I'm shell-shocked at Dan's story.
Oh.
Sorry. Yeah.
Turtle.
No,
not the same.
I consider, Melissa, every day to be a holiday. That's why I always like reading the national days. Today, December 2nd, everyone, National Fritters Day. Absolutely amazing pastry. National Special Education Day. So thank your special ed teachers. And then it's also National Bartender Day. Another important person in your life, I think.
And
so.
special education teachers need a good bartender.
Oh, yeah. And I think those two, it's the reason they both fall on December 2nd.
That's right.
Post 137 tonight then. Okay.
Well, thank you all. Joe McLean, Fred Matthews, Dan Scanlon, and Nate Monroe. Thanks as always, and have a great weekend, guys.
Same here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa.
Make sure to listen today at noon, by the way, for the Florida Roundup. That's another little tidbit for you. And in a moment, we'll be back with our latest JME DJ sessions, the beautiful noise of Northeast Florida. That's next.
This week on Science Friday, a new book makes the argument that we're not so different from undersea critters like jellyfish and yeti crabs.
I think it's a really good practice of empathy to really find intimacy with strange or bizarre or, unsavory creatures.
All on Science Friday from WNYC Studios.
This afternoon at 3 here on WJCT News 89.9.
Oath Keepers founder Stuart Rhodes is found guilty of seditious conspiracy for the attack on the U.S. Capitol. Researchers say they may have finally found a drug that can slow the progressions of Alzheimer's, and
that's a big game, man!
The U.S. men's soccer team makes it through to the knockout round of the World Cup. More on the Friday News Roundup, next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. Time for our December DJ listening session at the Jacksonville Music Experience. Great new music from top local talent with our own Matt Shaw.
Hey, Matt. How you doing? Good to be with you.
Nice to be with you, Melissa.
So, 3 new local songs that you've reviewed at jaxmusic.org, and they are in regular rotation on the independent 89.9 HD4 for people that want to tune in. What's on your turntable this month?
Well, first up, we've got a debut from a new band made up of some local rock scene OGs. The band's called Majestic Mother. You've got Mike Fitzgerald on lead vocals. He played in Dark Horse Saloon for years. He's backed up by Brent Knuckle, Don Nickel, and Jason Hoy, who were members of another heavy rock group called 9E for some years.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, On the Run is the first Majestic Mother single. It's a no-nonsense rocker with Fitzgerald sounding more than a little bit like Perry Farrell from Jane's Addiction.
Nice.
Let's hear a taste of Majestic Mother. This is On the Run.
Okay, so next up is Metaphysical by Cosmic Link. This is part of Duval's big hip-hop scene?
Totally, yeah, and this is actually a transcontinental collaboration here. So Jay Maestro, musical polymath from Jacksonville, some might know him from the work he did with Duval hip-hop icon, the late, great Peyton Locke, a project they did called Stono Echo. But this is Cosmic Link. Maestro's linked up with a producer named Ben Debuisson from Bristol in the UK. I want to play the title track from their new EP. There are a lot of really great layers and textures on this track, and Maestro's voice is really a finely tuned instrument. Here's Cosmic Link with the song Metaphysical.
What you see in her visions, this life or light from bright screens. What you seek is what you'll find, and there's no time rewinding. So be mindful how you spend your
Okay, one more to go. What else you got?
Yeah, last but not least, I imagine you might remember the electronic duo Lands. Melissa, we've played clips from a few of their songs over the last year or two on DJ sessions. It's Jack's musicians Brian Squillis and Renaya Woodard. They decamped to Los Angeles in 2021 after signing with Run for Cover Records out of Boston. But anyway, they've got a yet-to-be-titled album on the way in 2023 and a new single. It's called Overseas, Back to You. It's great to hear them expanding on their sound. If you're a fan of groups like Animal Collective or Washed Out, this will definitely be in your wheelhouse. Let's get a taste of Land's Overseas, Back to You.
So this is just a small example of everything Matt works on at JME, the Jacksonville Music Experience, the beautiful noise from Northeast Florida and beyond. You can check it all out at jacksmusic.org and listen to local artists on the independent 89.9 HD4, the only radio station that features the talent of the 904 regularly. Arts and culture editor Matt Shaw, thanks so much.
Thanks for listening with me, Melissa.
Beautiful stuff. Finally, this hour, Christmas in Avondale is coming up this weekend with a special attraction set for this Saturday, a new mural with some meaning. Avondale resident Ron Rothberg is on the line to tell us about that. Hey, Ron, tell us about this.
Hey, good morning, Melissa. We are so excited about Christmas in Avondale and the unveiling of the new Hearts for Minds mural that is right there on the corner of St. John's and Talbot. It is going to be spectacular. These artists have poured all their love into this and really have created a mural that really connects with this area. The main feature of the mural is one of these fabulous live oak trees backlit by perhaps a sunrise or a sunset, whatever you think it is. We're excited about unveiling it at 5:30 tomorrow when all the madness of Christmas in Avondale is going on here in the shops.
And there's a QR code in the mural, isn't there, for people to access mental health help?
Absolutely. Hearts for Minds has a grant from the city and from the state to raise awareness and destigmatize mental health issues and illness. The QR code connects people to resources for people who are in need, mental health resources. It is a fantastic program. Hearts for Minds was started by Cheryl Johnson. She is a true warrior and a champion to make sure that these valuable resources are connecting with people. And what a great way to do it, connect it through art. It's a fantastic program. We're so excited that we were able to get one of their murals here in Avondale.
And it will be unveiled, as Ron said, at 5:30 p.m. Saturday at the corner of St. John's Avenue and Talbot as part of Christmas in Avondale, a special attraction this year and a free community celebration to get into the holiday spirit. I'll try to see you there, Ron.
Oh, I hope you're here, Melissa. Christmas in Avondale is like the end scene of a Hallmark movie for the holidays. It literally is. So please come here and be part of it. And we love to have everyone out there join our celebration.
Going to be great. Thank you, Ron Rothberg. See you soon.
Thank you.
And thanks, everyone, for listening. Thanks also to our team, David Luck and Heather Schatz, Brendan Rivers, Isabella De Silva, Gary Autry, and Michelle Coram. I'm Melissa Ross, back with you at noon today for the Florida Roundup. We'll see you then. Make it a great Friday.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided